Okay, so magandang araw sa ating lahat, and then yung topic natin for the fourth quarter, which is the digestive system. Actually, nandito na tayo sa unit 4, no, na kung saan ang unit title niya is Living Things and the Environment, I think, and then it focuses all about the biology, no. Medyo ano na nga lang din to, mas mahirap lang to compare nung kayo grade 7 pa lamang. So, pwede na tayo mag-start. So, alam niyo naman ang ibig sabihin ng digestive system, di ba? So, balikan lang natin yung topic natin ng grade 7. Ang digestive system ay isang example ng organ system, no? Na kung saan marami tayong bahagi sa ating katawan ang belong dito. Sa belong or meron tayong taglay sa loob ng ating katawan. Medyo repetitive yung aking sinabi, pero sa bawat organ system natin, just like yung mga respiratory system, digestive system, muscular system, skeletal system, and some other organ system sa ating katawan, sobrang importante po yan. Kapag nawala po yung isa sa mga yan, mawawala ng halaga or function yung ibang mga organ system dyan, diba? Lahat yan nagko-coordinate sa bawat isa, and then usually po walang superiority sa bawat organ system dito. Even though may iba mga textbooks sinasabi nila na may mga superiority, or hindi naman superiority, kumbaga most sinasabi nila na ganitong organ system is mas important, yung ganitong organ system is mas important kaysa sa ganito. Lahat po yan mas mahalaga, lahat po yan importante. Walang superiority sa kanila, lahat sila pantay-pantay na may kakakibat na function. Lahat sila nakikipag-coordinate sa bawat isa. Ayun po. So, sunod po is, ayan po yung isang example ng organ system. Now, alam niyo naman na po yan nung kayo elementary pa lamang po. At naka-specify po dyan yung mga parts ng digestive system, no? At mamaya, iisa-isay natin yung lahat ng yan. And then, meron tayong mga functions ng digestive system. Siyempre, sa pag-aaral ng mga organ system or in higher study in biology, meron tayong tinatawag na anatomy and physiology. And then, sa anatomy, it tells all about the structure of our organ system, and then yung physiology, it tells all about the function of organ system. So, sa una, madali, pero kapag inaral mo talaga, mahirap talaga siya, lalo na talaga kung aaralin mo yung mga makakapal na libro ng biology, or kung talagang gusto mong tahakin ng pre-med studies, yun talaga, sasakit ang ulo. And then, hindi lang yun, yung mga nakikita nyo dito na parts ng digestive system, mas ano pa po dyan, mas intensive pa po yan pag-aaralan nyo yung anatomy and physiology. Or should I say human anatomy and physiology. So, balik na tayo sa functions of digestive system. So, una po, ingestion of food. Pangalawa po, digestion of food. Next po is yung absorption of nutrients. And then pang-apat, which is the elimination of waste, which is matatakal natin siya later on. Hindi ko pa siya pwedeng i-explain kasi pag in-explain ko siya, parang na-explain ko na rin lahat, no, ng process ng kung paano natin kinakain yung ating pagkain, no, at saka kung saan ito napupunta. Diba po? At saka paalan ko na po kayo, no, medyo pasintabi lang po sa mga nakakain, no, pag nandun na tayo sa huling part, no, which is the elimination of waste. So, dito na po tayo next. So, meron tayong dalawang major components ng digestive system, which are the digestive tract and then digestive glands. So, in digestive tract, no, it is a tubular component which involved in propelling or conducting the food in and out of organism. So, it is composed of mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small and large small, pati na rin yung large intestine, and lastly, yung sa anus, no, or anus, no. And then, ganyan yung function ng ganyan yung mga organs na yan yung mga organs na kabilang sa digestive tract, no. So, meron tayong tinatawag na mechanical digestion, no. Sa mechanical digestion, food enters the mouth, chewed or torn to small pieces and is conducted down the digestive tract through the action of peristalsis. So, ano yung peristalsis na yon, no? Yung peristalsis, ito yung radially symmetrical contraction and relaxation of smooth muscles that contracts the body parts to push the materials through the digestive tract, no? Ito na yung tumutulak doon, no? Tumutulak yung mismong material or yung material na sinasabi ko dito, yung pagkain, no? So, or ningunguya natin or ini-intake natin. So, through the help of digestive tract, it facilitates easier movement of the food downwards, which is lined with mucus to act as lubrication for the food. So, yun po yung function ng peristalsis. At malaki na itutulong na ito sa buhay natin, lalo na kapag tayo inakain. So, meron tayong components of digestive tract. No? Unahin natin yung pinakauna na dadaanan ng pagkain, which is the mouth or oral cavity. So, sa ating bunganga or sa ating bibig, no, yan, bunganga or bibig, yun na rin yun. So, it is the opening of digestive tract. Then, the food is initially ingested, no? And then, ayan yung anatomy, no, ng mouth or yung ating oral cavity. At yung iba dyan, i-explain natin. So, sa mouth, meron tayong lips, di ba? So, it is a pinkish or brown fleshy folds around the margin of the mouth. And then, the upper and lower lips function to keep the food inside the oral cavity when it is masticated or chewed or ningunguya. So, the taste and tactile receptors in the lips gives an initial sensation of the taste and texture of the food. Aside dito sa dila natin, malaki na itutulong ng lips katulad ng nasabi dito, meron siyang tactile receptors na nandoon upang makapagbigay, no, ng paunang information regarding dun sa magiging lasa ng pagkain. No? Yan po, malaki na itutulong niya. So in tongue, it is located inside the oral cavity, and then ito yung muscular organ that is used for tasting, mixing, and swallowing the food being ingested. So it contains taste buds, no, that contain sensory receptors for taste, no, and then ito po yung anatomy ng tongue. And then, meron dyang mga parts, no, I think na ituro naman na sa atin to nung elementary, na parts ng ating dila, no, na kung saan kaya niyang, kumbaga meron siyang receptor na, or should I say na, magbibigay ng katiyakan kung ano yung lasa ng pagkain. It's either matamis, maalat, mapait, or kung ano man yung mga lasa pa, no, na pwede natin matiyak dun sa sa pag-ingest natin ng pagkain or kung nandiyan na yung pagkain sa dila natin. Dito na mafa-finalize yung information kung anong lasa ng pagkain. So, nandito na tayo sa gums. So, these are the connective tissues that form sockets where the teeth are individually anchored to the jaw bones. It keeps the teeth in place and serve as shock absorber that cushions the impact of the teeth on the jawbone during the mastication, no. Malaki na itutulong ng gums, no. Lahat 'yan, lahat ng mga organ system as well as pati yung mga organs, malaki yung naitutulong niya. Lalo na dito sa part na ito. And then next po, sa teeth, they are responsible for the mechanical digestion ng pagkain. And then siya yung may kakayanan upang makapag-breakdown, no, yung makapag-breakdown ng malalaking pagkain, and then ma-divide siya, or yun nga, manguya natin siya into smaller parts, di ba po? And then ito yung way upang mas ma-enjoy natin yung ating nakakain or kinakain, di ba po? And then meron tayong apat na types ng teeth, no, which are the incisors, canine or cuspids, molars, and then premolars. So, yan po yung mga types ng teeth, no, as well as sa atin mga adults. And then sa incisors, meron tayong central and lateral incisors. So, in the incisors, these teeth are thin, flat bottom teeth, and narrow edge teeth. 8 incisors are found in the mouth, which is the four tops, 4 na ngipin na incisors sa top center, at saka 4 naman sa bottom center. 4 sa taas at 4 din sa baba. So, ang function ng incisors, these teeth are used for cutting food and initially bite into food, and are used in tugging and pulling food into our mouth. Yan po. So in terms of canine naman or cuspids, these teeth are sharp, pointed teeth on either side of the incisors. They are the longest teeth with a pointed end. So, yun po yung may talas ang ngipin natin. Yung para tayong vampira. Pero parang madedetermine natin na meron tayong parang matalas ng ngipin dito. So, yung tawag doon canine or cuspid. So, ang function po nito, these are used for tearing and ripping food apart, no? Kasi syempre matalas yun. So, malaki yung nagiging tulong ng canine teeth, no? Or canine tooth na ma-tear apart natin yung pagkain ningunguya natin. Di ba po? The next po, yung molars. These teeth are large with a flatter surface. So, ang function po niya, it is a main masticator. It is used for chewing to break down food into smaller pieces. Same lang din siya ng canine or cuspids, but kapag sinabi nating masticators, kapag sinabi nating masticators, ito yung nakakatulong upang makapag-grind or makapag-pulp ng mismong pagkain, no? Para mas manguya natin palalo ng mas maayos yung ating kinakain, no? And then next po, yung premolars, no? So they are found next to canines and the foremost molars in the mouth. So yung function niya, these teeth are used for chewing food. So ayun po yung function niya. Same lang din siya ng mga previous types ng mismong ngipin natin. Same lang din siya ng mga functions nila. The next po, yung mga palates. Meron tayong hard palate and then soft palate. So, they form a roof of the mouth and separates it from the nasal cavity. So, meron tayong dalawang palates which are the hard palates, which yung hard palates, from the word itself, it has a bony structure forming the anterior roof of the mouth. And then yung soft palates, their muscular structure forming the posterior roof, no? Yun, nakikita nyo naman yung makakapan nyo naman mas una lang yung hard palate, no? Kakapain natin, pwede natin kapain basta malinis lang yung mga daliri natin, di ba? Or kapain natin sa pamagitan ng dila na lang para hindi masyado nakakadiri, no? Kakapain natin yung unang portion, which is makikita natin yung hard palate, and then yung nandun sa may bandang dulo ay yung soft palate. Malambot siya, no? And then meron part ng palate na tinatawag ng uvula. It is a soft muscular tissue projecting from the soft palate which moves upward during swallowing to prevent food or water from going to nasal cavity, no? And then malaki yun na itutulong niya na para yun nga, mahirap naman kung yung alam mo yung may bumabara sa mismong nasal cavity natin na pagkain, or yung alam mo yung may nagpatawa tapos biglang may bumara din sa may part ng nasal cavity mo. And then yun, malaki na itutulong ng uvula, no, para ma-prevent niya, no, yung part ng ating pagkain na hindi mapunta doon sa nasal cavity na yun. And then Palatine Tonsils, they're the masses of lymphoid tissues at the right and left corners of the posterior area of the mouth cavity. So it acts as an oral cavities defense against microbes that enter the mouth, no? And then in terms of salivary glands, no, it is located in the wall and floor of the mouth cavity. So these are where saliva is secreted to lubricate and moisten the food in the mouth cavity. So meron tayong mga iba't ibang mga glands na nandito, just like sublingual gland, submandibular gland, and then parotid gland. Then in terms of speaking of saliva, nandito na rin tayo. So in terms of saliva, it contains salivary amylase or thiolin enzymes, which are the example of enzymes, no? And then that preliminary digests starch from the food into maltose. So in terms of saliva, the food is masticated by the teeth and tongue and lubricated by the salivary action of the salivary glands. The food eventually transforms into a bolus or a mass of preliminary digested and lubricated food mass. So the bolus is pushed by the tongue and swallowed into the throat or pharynx. So, ayun po yung function din ng saliva. So, in terms of pharynx, na-mention na rin natin yung pharynx, meron tayong tatlong parte ng pharynx, di ba po? So, which are the nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. So, sa nasopharynx, it is a, hindi, bago muna tayo mapunta dun. So, pharynx is a common passageway for air and food. The upper portion of the pharynx is called the nasopharynx, which is continuous with the nasal cavity and directs air towards the trachea. So the lower portion behind the oral cavity, which is the oropharynx, which leads the food towards the esophagus through the movement of the smooth muscles into the walls. And then your last one, which is the laryngopharynx, is where both food and the air pass. It can be found between the hyoid bone and the larynx and the esophagus, no? Which helps guide food and air where to go. So a smooth mucous membrane covers the side and back walls. Air is always given priority to pass through if food or air try to pass through pharynx at the same time. So, nakita nyo naman yung, bago tayo mapunta sa epiglottis, nakita naman natin yung tatlong parts ng pharynx, di ba? So, next po. In terms of epiglottis, no, part na rin siya, medyo malapit siya sa part ng laryngopharynx. So, it is a lid-like structure in the trachea which function is to close during inhalation to prevent food from going into the trachea. So, malaki din yun na itutulong ng epiglottis para di tayo magkaroon ng problema dun sa part na yun, di ba? Para mapigilan yung food na mapunta basta-basta sa trachea. And then, based on this image, as the bolus moves down the pharynx, it is pushed towards esophagus. So it is a 25 cm long, thin and muscular tube which connects the pharynx to the stomach. So it moves the food bolus to the stomach by the way of peristalsis, katulad na na-mention ko later kanina lang. So which is undulating contraction of the muscles in the esophagus. During peristalsis, regions of the esophagus closer to the stomach open to permit the food bolus to pass through, while the region above the bolus contracts to push the bolus forward. So, ayan po yung ibig sabihin po ng image na yon. So, it is because of peristalsis that the food can be swallowed even while the body is lying down or even upside down. So the esophagus is also involved in vomiting reflexes or yung pagsusuka to forcefully void the contents of the stomach. In this case, peristalsis is reversed in the esophagus to forcefully vomit out harmful, toxic, or contaminated food na dumaan sa ating digestive tract, di ba? And then, since nandun na tayo sa may portion ng stomach, medyo punta na tayo dito sa cardiac sphincter. So in terms of cardiac sphincter, it is a two muscular rings which the food is moved by peristalsis down the esophagus that controls the re-entry of the bolus to the esophagus, no? Katulad ng sinabi din dito, cardiac sphincter is the valve located at the lower end of the esophagus which prevents backflow of stomach contents into the esophagus, no? And then yan po. So in terms of stomach, it is a J-shaped muscular organ at the upper left of the abdomen, a little below the liver and beside the spleen. The bolus eventually enter in this organ. So meron tayong apat na regions of stomachs, no? So they are the cardia, fundus, body of stomach, and then pylorus. So in terms of cardia, it is the region just below the esophagus, no? Which is in yung blue part na nakikita nyo naman. And then yung fundus, it is a round region left of the cardia and below the diaphragm, no? Which is yung kulay dilaw. And then yung body of the stomach, ito yung largest region of stomach na nakikita nyo may pagka-green, no? Which is yun yung malaking region talaga nakikita, napapansin at nakikita nyo rin naman din sa illustration. And then last one, yung pylorus, it connects the stomach to the small intestine that contains another muscular rings called pyloric sphincter. It prevents the contents of the small intestines from going back to the stomach, no? So yun po yung function ng pylorus. So yung function ng stomach, it is the temporary storage of food, being able to hold it for an average of 2 hours, no? So it also mixes and churns food by by the contraction of its muscular walls until the bolus is converted into a thick acidic soup called chyme, no? So ayan po yung chyme. Nandun siya sa portion na malapit na siyang kumawala din sa mismong part ng stomach. So another function of stomach, it also secretes gastric juices that contains HCl or hydrochloric acid and pepsin, which break down protein in the food into polypeptides and proteases. No? In terms of gastric juices is also highly acidic with a pH of 1, no? And this acidity helps in killing 85% of the bacteria found in the food. So the chyme moves out of the stomach into the main site of digestion, which is the small intestine. Just remember about gastric juices, nandun siya sa part ng sa pH scale, nandun siya sa may bandang 1, di ba po? And then isa siyang example ng acid. Ayun nga, highly acidic nga po, di ba? At siguro ilagay ko na lang dito, i-link down ko na lang or ilagay ko na lang sa end screen yung portion na naituro ko yung acids and bases, no? So in terms of small intestine is the longest part of the digestive tract. Bakit natin na-determine na mahabang parte ito ng digestive tract is nasabi ditong small intestine lamang siya. Maliit yung kanyang intestine but mahaba yung kanyang tract, no? In terms of na nandun sa digestive tract, no? And then yung taglay na haba niya, it is around 4.75 and up to 6 meters in length. It is called and fills a large part of the abdominal cavity. So the small intestine, meron siyang tatlong region which are the duodenum, jejunum, and then ileum. Yan. So ayan yung tatlong part ng small intestine. So ayan po yung small intestine, nakikita nyo naman na po. Yung kulay dilaw, which is the duodenum. Next po yung kulay blue. I think kulay blue or violet, no? Medyo naka-colorblind ako, which is the jejunum, and then yung ileum, which is may pagka-pinkish part siya, violet or pinkish part. So, magsimula muna tayo sa duodenum. So, it is connected to the pylorus of the stomach and is the shortest and widest part of the small intestine. So, this region is considered the mixing bowl of secretion of intestinal hormones like secretin, cholecystokinin, and hydrolytic enzymes formed from 3 digestive glands, which are the pancreas, liver, and then small intestine. No? So, in terms of jejunum, so it is the middle region of small intestine. So, most of the chemical digestion and nutrient absorption takes place. No? Nakikita nyo naman. And then, lastly, yung ileum, which is the longest region ng small intestine. So, where the absorption of nutrients and water occur and where undigested food is emptied into the large intestine. So, digestion is completed in the small intestine. If the chyme contains lipid, cholecystokinin hormone is secreted to stimulate the emptying of bile from the gallbladder into the duodenum for the emulsification of fats. In the same manner, if proteins and carbohydrates are present, no, secretin hormones is secreted to stimulate the pancreas to release pancreatic juice that contains various hydrolytic enzymes that will completely digest carbohydrates into simple sugar. Or yung simple sugar na tinutukoy natin, ito po yung monosaccharide. So, ayun po. So, after po na duman sa ileum, meron tayong mga intestinal villi na naandoon, di ba? Yan. And then, yung mga intestinal villi na yan, nandun siya sa portion ng small intestine. And then, ito po, no, so intestinal villi, it is an inner lining of the small intestine, has many finger-like projections or evaginations of the mucous membranes. It increases the absorptive surface area of small intestine. Each vilus is the network of capillaries that is used to absorb amino acids, no? Which is, yung amino acid na tinutukoy ko dito, ito yung mga building blocks ng proteins, no? And then yung monosaccharides, ito yung mga building blocks para makabuo tayo ng carbohydrates. So, sa monosaccharide na yun, it's either pwede niya ma-absorb yung mga glucose, fructose, and galactose. Ayan po. So, the nutrients will be transported by the blood to the different tissues and cells of the body. Other structures inside each vilus are finger-like lymph vessels called lacteals, no? So lacteals absorb fatty acids and glycerols, no? Yung fatty acids and glycerols, ito po yung mga building blocks, no, na para makabuo ng mga lipids, no? And then that is transported via circulatory system. So alamin natin yung mga digestive tract, glands, secretion, pati rin yung mga enzymes nito, as well as kung ano yung nagiging action niya sa action ng mismong enzyme para dun sa secretion ng digestive system na ito. And then, yung digestive tract natin, which is the small intestine, yung gland dito is yung liver, and then yung secretion niya ay mapupunta sa bile, and then wala siyang enzymes, and then yung action ng mismong enzyme dito sa part na ito, which is to emulsify the lipids. So, ayun po yun. Medyo naano tayo dun. So, dito muna tayo. So, mouth cavity, which is the digestive tract, and then yung digestive gland natin is mapupunta sa salivary glands, and then yung secretion niya is mapupunta sa saliva. And then yung enzyme na magagamit natin dito is, which is yung salivary amylase and thiolate, no? Which is parang sinasummarize na rin natin para mas magets natin. Then yung action ng salivary amylase and then thiolate, which helps to break down the starch into maltose, which is kaka-mention ko lang earlier. Or kanina. Yun nga. And then, marirecognize natin na enzyme yung mismong may bibigay ko kapag nalaman natin na nagtatapos siya sa ASE. But not all the enzymes ay nagtatapos sa ASE. Tulad na lang ng thiolate, di ba po? And then, dito naman sa stomach, which is the digestive tract, and then yung digestive gland natin is yung gastric acid, no? Or gastric gland, no? In other references. Then yung secretion of yung digestive secretion niya, ito yung gastric juices, and then yung enzyme na ginagamit dito is yung pepsin. Ano yung action ng pepsin? Which breaks down proteins into polypeptide and proteases. And then yung para na-mention ko na to, which is the small intestine, liver, and then bile. And then yung small intestine naman, meron siyang digestive gland na tinatawag na pancreas, and then yung digestive secretion niya, which is the pancreatic juices, and then yung enzyme niya, kung meron tayong pancreatic juices, meron tayong pancreatic lipase, no? So yung action ng pancreatic lipase is to break down the emulsified fats into fatty acids and then glycerol, di ba po? Yung fats na tinutukoy dito, which is yung mga lipids, no? And then dito naman in terms of small intestine again, mapunta tayo sa pancreas, which is the digestive gland, and then yung digestive secretion natin, which is the pancreatic juice, and then yung enzyme na ginagamit dito for digestive secretions is trypsin, chymotrypsin, no? So yung action ng trypsin, chymotrypsin na to, which is to break down polypeptides and amino acids na nanggaling dun sa protein. And then another enzyme, which is the nucleus, and then yung action of enzyme is to break down the nucleic acids, which is the macromolecule, and then nag-break down siya into smaller pieces, which are the nucleotides. So ayan po. So another digestive tract again, which is the small intestine, same lang din siya ng digestive glands, and then yung digestive secretion niya is intestinal juices, no? Intestinal juice, no? And then yung enzyme na ginagamit for digestive secretion, which is the maltase, and then yung action na ginagawa ng maltase is to break down maltose into glucose, no? And then next po, in terms of intestinal juices again, mapunta na tayo sa sucrase, no? Which is ito yung enzyme na ginagamit for digestive secretion, and then yung action ng sucrase, which breaks down sucrose into glucose and fructose. So ayan po. So same lang din po siya ulit. In terms of lactase naman, ano yung nagiging action ng lactase dun sa digestive secretion ng intestinal juices is to break down lactose into glucose and galactose. So ganun po yun. So amylopsin, no? Amylopsin naman, which helps to break down carbohydrates into monosaccharide, from carbohydrate down to monosaccharide. So ayan po. So next po is large intestine. So ayan po. So in terms of large intestine pala. Um, After the absorption of nutrients, the part of the food that aren't digested are pushed toward in this organ. So um, it is shorter than small intestine in terms of their length, no? Pero it is 3 times wider compared than the small intestine. So it is responsible for the absorption of water from undigested food to prepare the waste as a solid stool that will be discharged from the body. So it reabsorbs the essential vitamins produced by the beneficial bacteria. So meron tayong 3 regions ng large intestine, which are the cecum, colon, and then rectum. So ito po siya. Yan po yung anatomy ng large intestine. So in terms of cecum, they receives the indigested materials from the ileum. So in terms of colon, it is a long tract composed of several parts, which are the ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, and sigmoid colon. And then in terms of rectum, it is the terminal tubular structure of the digestive tract. Sa mga parts ng large intestine, meron tayong mare-recognize na isang parte na tinatawag natin na Colic Flexures. And then, meron 2 part ng Colic Flexures, I think. Yun nga, 2 nga lang, which are the right Colic Flexure or Hepatic Flexure, as it is next to the liver, receives blood supply from the superior mesenteric artery. While the left Colic Flexure or Splenic Flexure, as it is close to the spleen, is a watershed region, as it receives dual blood supply from the terminal branches of the superior and inferior mesenteric artery, thus making it prone to ischemic damage in cases of low blood pressure because it does not have its own primary source of blood. Next naman po, which is anus. So anus is the terminal opening of the digestive tract, in which the opening is found at the end of the anal canal, no? And it is undigested food becomes feces or undigested waste, no, will be discharged, no, just like yung feces or digestive waste, as well as the carbon dioxide as a product of bacterial fermentation, which is discharged through the anus. And then I know na medyo nagtataka kayo dun sa previous part kung ano yung ischemic na tinutukoy dito or ischemic damage, no? So in the context of ischemia, additional ko lang to, the splenic flexure is sometimes referred to as a Griffith's point along with the upper rectum, which is the Sudak's point. So balik tayo sa anus. Anus contains 2 rings of muscles, no, which are the internal voluntary anal sphincter, which are the smooth muscle, then the external voluntary anal sphincter, which are the skeletal muscles, no. So next naman po is appendix. It is a small pouch-like sac of tissue that is located in the first part of the colon or the cecum in the lower right abdomen. Lymphatic tissues in the appendix aids in immune function. Then as well as maaring makaapekto yung appendix, no, lalo na kapag ito ay napuno, di ba? And then suddenly mahirap na kapag ito ay napuno at pumutok dun sa parte ng ating katawan. Kaya minsan nagkakaroon ng undergoing surgery na tinatawag natin na appendicitis. Appendicitis yung tawag dun. Yun nga, yung appendicitis na kung saan kailangan kunin yung part ng appendix na yun para di na siya gaanong maka-apekto dun sa part ng katawan na yun. Minsan may ibang mga textbooks or other references, tinatawag siya na vestigial organs. Di ba po? Dahil para sa tingin nila parang may mga purpose or function naman talaga yung appendix, but somehow mas malaki yung nagiging epekto nito pag ito ay napuno at mismo sumabog sa parte ng ating katawan. Kaya ayun po. So the gut bacteria gives the large intestine an acidic environment. The large intestine secretes alkaline solution that help to decrease the acidity and balance the pH level. So the mucus secretion of the lining of the large intestine serves as the protection against pathogenic bacteria. No? So ano yung pathogenic bacteria? No? Ito po yung mga harmful bacteria. So ito yung malaki na itutulong na ito upang ma-prevent natin yung mga pathogens from being reabsorbed by the body. So mapunta na tayo sa digestive glands. So Sa digestive glands, so they are secretory organs that secrete hydrolytic or digestive enzymes that chemically breaks down complex food into a simpler form, which is the chemical digestion. This process breaks down carbohydrates into a simple sugars or monosaccharide, no? And then proteins into amino acids and lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. Dalawa yung building blocks ng lipids, no? Which are these fatty acids at saka glycerol. And then salivary glands in the mouth, gastric glands in the stomach, intestinal glands, pancreas, and the liver are all digestive glands, no? Lahat na na-mention ko dyan. Then, yan yung mga halimbawa ng digestive glands. And then, just like, for example, yan yung mga salivary glands, gastric glands, pancreas, liver, gallbladder, pati yung intestinal glands natin. And then, somehow, additional ko lang din, meron tayong pinakamatibay na muscle sa ating katawan, no? Hindi yung biceps or triceps, no? Kundi yung ating mga masseter muscles. Ang mga masseter muscles, malaki na itutulong niya upang manguya natin ng maigi yung ating mga kinakain, no? Kayang-kaya niyang makanguya talaga. Yun ang pinakamalakas na muscle sa ating katawan. And then yung salivary glands, meron tayo parotid, submandibular, and then sublingual glands, which is na-mention ko kanina. And then, in terms of salivary glands, they secrete saliva that lubricates ingested food and dissolved food substance so they can be tasted by taste receptors, no, at found in the tongue and other parts of oral cavity para ma-determine nito kung ano yung lasa na natikman mong pagkain. No? So, ito yung mga enzymes na nasa salivary glands. Una yung salivary amylase, which they assist the saliva in preliminary digesting starch into maltose, no? And then ma-determine na kagad natin na ang enzyme ay nagtatapos talaga siya sa ASE, but not all the time nagtatapos siya doon. May iba mga enzymes na hindi nagtatapos sa ASE. Just like for example, yung immunoglobulin, no, or IgA antibodies, which are the natural antibodies na nag-exist dito sa salivary glands. And then yung lysozymes can cleanses the mouth and protects it against microbes, no? And then meron tayong gastric glands, no, which it is located in the inner lining of the walls of the stomach. It produces mucus, hydrochloric acid, and hydrolytic enzymes. So ayan po sila. And then mucus secretion protects the lining of the stomach from being eroded by all the acids. Hydrolytic enzymes, pepsinogens, are activated into pepsins and enables breakdown of proteins into polypeptides and proteases. So the acidity also renders the stomach antiseptic to most bacteria. Yan po. So in terms of pancreas naman, so pancreas is a digestive gland din. So it is a yellowish white, pear-shaped and flat gland, no? And then it is found at the fork between stomach and duodenum of the small intestine. So meron tayong dalawang kinds ng pancreatic cells, no? Which are the pancreatic juice pati yung endocrine cells. Yung pancreatic cells or pancreatic juice, no, contains hydrolytic enzymes that breaks down into a building blocks ng carbohydrates and protein na kung saan nagpo-produce na lamang ito ng ano ba tawag dito? Ng monosaccharide at saka yung amino acid respectively sa position na nabanggit ko po. Yan po. And then yung endocrine cell or endocrine secretes hormones which are the insulins and glucagons directly into the bloodstream. So ano yung pinagkaiba ng insulin at saka glucagon? No? May iba kasi yung basa kasi nila insulin. May ibang basa dito insulin, no? So, sa insulin is secreted when the glucose level in the blood is elevated and helps to lower the amount of glucose in the blood by stimulating the liver to store glucose in the form of glycogen. So, what about glucagon? No? It is secreted when the glucose level in the blood is low by stimulating the liver to break down glycogen into glucose. So malaki na tutulong ng insulin at saka glucagon. Kapag mag-intake ka ng insulin kapag para lang ito sa mga matataas yung amount ng glucose. At ito yung makakatulong upang bumaba yung level ng glucose natin sa katawan natin. And then yung glucagon makakatulong upang makapagpataas, no, ng glucose natin or yung blood level, yung glucose level natin sa ating dugo. No? And then yan po yun. So, next po is yung liver. The liver is the largest organ and gland in the human body. So, yung adult liver, ang size niya po is 1.5 kg. So, located at the upper right of the abdominal cavity yun. Hindi pala if, no? Below the thoracic cage, no? Nandito siya sa portion ng taas, no? Taas siya, nasa thoracic. Nasa part siya ng ribs natin. Malapit nga doon sa ribs natin. And then yung 4 lobes of liver, which are the large right lobe, the middle lobe, small left lobe, and then caudate lobe. So, ayun po yung part ng liver. So, nandito na tayo sa diseases and disorders na nandito sa digestive system. Actually, gusto kong ipakita yung mga pictures dito for some diseases and disorders sa digestive system natin. Pero baka kinakabahan ako, baka magkaroon tayo ng community strike. Pero hanggat maaari, kung ano man, iniiwasan ko na lang din. Yun na lang, kaya medyo tinanggal ko yung ibang part ng mga sobrang sa tingin ng iba is disgusting. Kaya tinanggal ko na lang muna para iwas na lang din talaga sa ganun. So, meron tayong mga pain locators para ma-determine natin kung saan bang parte ng katawan posibleng nananakit, no, or yung part ng digestive tract natin, no. And then for example, yung gastroesophageal reflux disease or GERD, no, or reflux, no. Yan po yung nangyayari sa kanya. So, yung nagiging symptom nito or symptoms, which is the heartburn, no? So, burning feeling radiating up from the center of the abdominal area and into the chest, right under the sternum. It is accompanied by the sour taste in the mouth or hypersalivation, especially at night, no? The illness is caused by certain medications, frequent consumption of alcohol, and certain food that are highly acidic. So, some children and adults nakaka-experience ng ganito without symptoms of heartburn. So instead, they experience asthma-like symptoms, difficulty swallowing, or dry cough. No? Nagkakaroon sila ng ganitong klaseng sakit. So yung treatment ng GERD, no, includes drugs that reduces acid levels. To prevent experiencing GERD, avoid food that are highly acidic. No? If one suffers severe GERD, doctors can tighten a loose muscles between the stomach and esophagus to inhibit the upward flow of acid. So, next po, which is the peptic ulcer. So, the main cause of this kind of diseases is the infection of the bacterium Helicobacter pylori or H. pylori, no? Pinapashorten na lang, no? Which corrodes the protective layer of mucus of the inner lining of the stomach and small intestine. This results of the development of sores in the linings. Factors that can aggravate the ulcers include smoking, frequent intake of the alcohol and soft drinks, pati na rin yung stress, no? And then, if not treated, ulcers can cause internal bleeding or hemorrhage, no, in the stomach wall or small intestine, which can lead to secondary infections. Long-term H. pylori infections can increase the risk of gastric cancer, no? Sobrang lala nun. Kaya kailangan talagang agapan na rin talaga. So, treatment for ulcer includes taking antibiotics for 2 weeks combined with acid reduction therapy to completely destroy the Helicobacter pylori bacteria, no? So, surgery is also an option for very severe cases only. Yun na yung final or last resort talaga para maiwasan to. So, yung gastritis, no? It is an acute or chronic inflammation on mucous layer of stomach wall. Then yung hepatitis, ito yung inflammation ng liver caused by virus infection. So, next po is yung diarrhea. So, an irritation of the membrane of colon wall caused by bacteria dysentery, bad diet, poisonous matters, pati na rin ng stress, no? Kaya, magiging pangalagaan ng ating katawan. And then, constipation. It is a disorder due to the excessive water absorption of feces by large intestine that causes difficulty to pass the feces or yung dumi. So, next po is yung mga gallstones. No? They are hard pebble-like deposits that form in the gallbladder. They form when there is extensive cholesterol or waste in the bile or if the gallbladder is not emptied properly. It gradually grows until they block the ducts, leading from this to the duodenum. This causes the sharp pain in the upper right abdominal area. It can be dissolved by some medications, but if the stones are too big or too hard, magpupunta na tayo sa final resort or final option natin, which is the surgery. Yan talaga. Parotitis, no, it is the inflammation of the parotid glands caused by the infection of Fabula influenza virus. So, and then last part is the colic disorder. So, it is the disorder caused by excessive food that comes within. No? And then, hemorrhoids, no, it is the inflammation of the blood vessels at the rectum or anal area. So they are caused by the diarrhea, straining during bowel movements, and lack of fibers in diet. No? Kaya kailangan talaga in-encourage tayong kumain din ng mga fibers. No? Hindi palagi junk food ang kinakain natin. So it can be painful and very itchy. No? To treat them, doctors advise more exercise and proper nutritional diet with more fiber and water. No? Kaya maiging pangalagaan ng ating kalusugan at nandito na tayo sa last part ng ating lesson, which is the food pyramid, no? So, in terms of food pyramid, it includes all type of food in accordance to the required ratio. As per the food pyramid, include in your diet lean protein, complex carbohydrates, and good lipids, and limit yourself from saturated fats or mga animal oils, 'di ba? No, yung mga starch and sugar to a minimum. Pwede ka naman mag-intake ng ganun, paunti-unti lang. No? Even though kahit bata ka pa, please. No? Hanggat maaari makinig ka sa teacher mo, sa magulang mo na. Yun nga, medyo i-lesson mo lang yung pag-detake ng ganun, mahirap na pag tumanda ka, and then, alam mo na, di ba? So, next po, consume the food fresh or closest to its raw or original form. Avoid or minimize intake of processed food or yung mga junk food natin, no? Iwas-iwas doon, no? Or kung di mo matiis, i-lessen mo lang. Siguro isang junk food, or wag ganun magkakain ng sobra. Mahirap na. So, drink juices from raw fruits, no? And try to avoid soft drinks or mga carbonated drinks, no? So, both drinks are laden with sugar, no? May sugar contents din yun. And then, kaya mas may ina-advise tayo na uminom ng mga calamansi juice, lemon juice, kasi yun ang healthy, di ba? And then, consume vitamins, enzymes, and fibers in the form of raw fruits and vegetables. Always eat your breakfast, no? Skipping breakfast makes your body go into starvation mode and thus store more fats. And then, sa totoo lang, pag di ka kumain ng almusal or sabihin natin you're undergoing a diet or fasting or abstinence, di ba? Yun nga, pwede mong disiplinahin yung sarili mo na wag mo na mag-breakfast, even though kung yun nga, talagang kailangan mo ng intensive diet. Pero hanggat maaari, yun nga, pwede ka rin naman mag-intake ng breakfast, wag lang yung talagang busog talaga, almost all in talaga yung pagkain mo, di ba? Kapag sakto ang kain lang. Yan, para di tayo bumibigat masyado. Diba? And then, suddenly, kapag di tayo kasi nag-i-skip tayo ng meals, malaki yung chance na bumaho yung hininga natin or magkaroon tayo ng bad breath. No? And then, lastly, drink lots of water daily. No? Minom kayo ng tubig, stay hydrated nga, ika nga, di ba? And then, yun lamang po yung napakahaba nating lesson at yun lamang po, dito ko na po tatapusin. And then, kung mayroon kayong mga questions, leave a comment below. And then, that's all for today. Goodbye.